Welcome back to the show. It's another episode of the McKinney Podcast, celebrating what makes us unique by nature. Want to give a special thank you and shout out to our folks watching on YouTube. We're not streaming live just yet, but one of these days we're going to have a live streaming setup, and that will probably be even more fun. Fred, I got to tell you a little story, man. This episode is really, really timely. Because should we introduce the guest and then tell the story?
Oh, absolutely.
Introduce the guest first and bring him in. This is going to be a different episode, folks, because we usually have a nice little bio section at the front where we hear about the human side of things and childhood and upbringing and whatnot. That's great. Michael has all of those things, but we're going to have a very detailed conversation about how stuff happens in McKinney. How do we get from idea to a building sitting somewhere, a business opening, a park being created, land being deployed in some way, development? If you're sitting here going, how does something happen in McKinney? How do we go from idea to a finished product? You're going to absolutely love this episode. So let's give this man the welcome that he deserves. So, our guest, let's see here. There we go. There's the text. Michael Quint was named as the City of McKinney's Executive Director of Development Services way back in July of 2015. That tells you that he's really good at his job because he's still here after almost 10 years. He joined the city in May of 2006 and has served in several roles, getting promoted several times because he's great at what he does, including planner, planner 2, senior planner, instead of planner 3. I don't know where senior planner, planner 3 is. Like, whoever made the titles there, that's questionable. Planning director. Prior to joining the great City of McKinney staff, Quint worked in the planning and engineering departments of Peoria, Arizona, not to be confused with Peoria, Illinois. Those are different cities, in fact. Right. It's a suburb of Phoenix. Quint obtained a bachelor's of science in sociology from Oklahoma State. That's curious. I'd like to hear about that for a little bit because that has nothing to do with civil planning and city management. He is a member of the American Planning Association, International City County Management Association, and a former ICC. That's the International Code Council Certified Residential Building Inspector. Please welcome Mr. Michael Quint.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Dude, it's quite a bio. There you go.
Still working on it.
So, quick question with the college.
Yes, sir.
How does one go from a sociology degree to being the executive director of development services for the greatest city in the world?
Wow. I wish I had an interesting story for you. I actually went to Oklahoma State to be an architect.
Okay.
And through my architecture studies, I took an urban sociology class. Decided there was a pivot point in my brain. It was like, okay, you can build buildings or you can build a city. I want to do that. Talked to my counselor there at Oklahoma State, and they said, hey, if you want to be a city planner, sociology, which is the study of people in groups. What is a city? People in groups. So that's how it came to be.
Interesting.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I know we're not going to dip into the childhood, but did you grow up playing with Legos, Lincoln Logs,
I didn't.
Tinker Toys? None of that.
I didn't. So I came from a military family. My dad was in the Army, so we moved around a lot. And so my love for city building came from being in Europe and seeing these historic cities and just falling in love with cities and all that they offer people. I was hooked at that point. So less Legos, more adventuring.
Okay.
Love it.
All right.
So I'm gonna tell the story here, and I don't know any of the names, so people can remain completely anonymous and innocent. Allison, my wife, was telling me probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now of an encounter that she had with some fellow moms. She's a room mom and volunteers at McClure Elementary here in McKinney. Way to go, Marshals. Love you guys. And shout out to Principal Harrison and all those wonderful people over there. And she was recalling to me the conversation about some development somewhere in McKinney. I forget what it was. It was probably a chiropractor or a car wash or nail salon or something. And somebody was complaining, and the quote was delivered to me that there's probably a dark room where deals are made and some cabal is deciding where all the things go, and it's just one big conspiracy. And Allison knows me well enough to know that I'm a development nerd, real estate, guy from here to Timbuktu. You know, here at RiskWell, we work with thousands of real estate investors. The whole like figuring out the way that a city comes to be. Like when I did Leadership McKinney in 2020, that was one of my very favorite pieces, was getting to hear from Paul Grimes and getting to hear from the city engineers and the folks that decide what is in the best interest of the good people of McKinney. Fast forward to a meeting 2 Mondays ago, almost 3 weeks ago now, and we're recording this on a Friday. I was at City Council chambers and got to hear Michael lead out a meeting talking about proposed developments on the north side of the square in downtown. And as he's talking, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, this is the guy. This is the guy I have to have on the show to talk about how things happen. Michael, is there a dark room where deals are made, where a cabal decides what goes where?
If there is, I haven't found it yet. Haven't found it. And that's God's honest truth. I haven't found it.
And you're the executive director of development services. So if there were such a room, you'd probably know where it's located.
I would know where
He would
it
have
is.
the keys.
You would be one of the people in that room,
right.
wouldn't you?
Probably.
Are you part of a cabal, Michael?
No.
An
no, sir.
evil group of nefarious people hell-bent on setting up the city in their way?
No, sir.
And is that
Good.
room dark? Is that room
Probably
dark?
with lots of very bright lights and those bowls that hang from the ceiling like a police interrogation room. Maybe
Not at all.
some red LEDs in the corner like a
Yes.
Sith Lord from Star Wars.
That's right. And theme music that just plays.
Like this. Dark and foreboding. Yeah, this is the music that plays on repeat in that room, wherever it is.
That's right. And I can see it, you know, just keep that up there. It's like, thank you for coming today. I noticed there was a patch of grass on the north side of the square. And we are McKinney. Unique by concrete. Pave it now.
I see a tree. We must chop it down and build a car dealership.
Vivid imagination, gentlemen. Vivid.
This is the stuff
Oh,
that gets
man.
communicated to us.
No, we are just the voice of the people, Michael.
Yes, sir.
No, okay. So we're gonna get deep in the weeds here. Be as detailed, as specific as you want. The whole purpose of this episode is to give people, all joking aside, Fred and I like to have a good time. But I want to have just the rank and file citizens of McKinney to have a better idea of how things go from idea to finished product, whether it's a business, a park, a development that's lots of businesses and lots of organization, like this beautiful stuff they were talking about downtown with a new boutique hotel getting built, retail office space, a new parking garage, some garden-style apartments, like pull it back to the beginning. How in the world does someone get to come to the city of McKinney? And obviously there's private development, there's zoning, there's planning, there's a committee made up of citizen volunteers. We're not going to talk about the PNC side of things. I'm talking specifically from the city's perspective. How does stuff come to be? Start at the beginning.
Well, it's not, I've got to start at the real beginning, not what people think is the beginning. So the real beginning is it starts with residents. So we have a comprehensive plan that guides all development that we do, no matter where it is in the city, starts with the comprehensive plan. We update our comprehensive plan every 7 to 10 years. And as part of that process, our last update was done in 2018. But as part of that process, we go out to the residents and we say, tell us what you think McKinney should be when it grows up right now, as it evolves throughout that life. What should it be? What should it look like? How should it touch, smell, all those things? And so before any development hits the ground, before anything pops out, before you spend $1 in a restaurant or you live in a house, it starts with that comprehensive plan. And that's the piece that people miss. I think a lot of times when I talk to residents, they're like, why are you city? Why are you putting this here? There's some dark room where everybody's
That's right.
talking about what to do and how to do it. It doesn't happen that way. It actually starts with a developer that says, hey, I've got this piece of property, or I'm looking at this piece of property and I want to do something. The first thing that we ask them is the zoning on your property conducive for whatever that something is that you want to do? Let's say I want to open an office building. Does the zoning on the property allow for the creation or the construction of an office building? I think for folks listening may not understand what zoning is and how it kind of relates to the comprehensive plan. So the think comprehensive plan, 100,000 foot view, okay? So it's this grand vision for where we're going as a community, how we want to build out. But the zoning is how you get there. All of our regulations are how you get there. The zoning details what uses can be built on a piece of property, how that use gets built, how far away from the street it has to be, how many trees it has to have. Does it have shrubs around the dumpster? Does it have shrubs around the parking lot? All of that stuff is included in the zoning ordinance. There's other regulations as well. There's the engineering design manual that when you turn on your water faucet, there's a bunch of people that did a bunch of work to get that water to your glass or to your toothbrush or to your sink. A bunch of folks here at the City of McKinney are working on that, but we have design standards that all feed that development. So let's go back to the example with the developer that wants to build an office building. Okay, so he has this idea, he has this property. He comes in and talks to us in something called a pre-development meeting. Now, pre-development meetings, for anybody listening out there, they're free. They're free of charge. We hold them, 6 of them every week, and it's first come, first serve. Hey, I've got this idea. I don't know if it's fully baked. I want to talk to somebody. Well, come on in for a pre-development meeting. It's low risk, no real buy-in, so to speak. You can come with an idea and we'll sound it out with you. But in that pre-development meeting, you'll meet with representatives from our fire department, building inspections, planning, engineering, all have a different kind of specialty in the development market, in the development industry. So we'll sit down in this pre-development meeting and we'll say, hey, sure enough, Mr. Developer, your property does allow an office building. We can do that. But here's some things that you need to be aware of. Your building can only be 3 stories tall. It needs to be 100 feet away from a nearby resident. It needs to have 50 parking spaces. We'll give them that information. They go back and refine, either they move forward with the project and refine their development plans, or they say, yeah, I can't make that work. I want to go somewhere else. But one of the things that I hear, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, is, the city, why did you decide to do that here? We don't decide that. All we do is we create the comprehensive plan, which is based on resident input. It's not me and my staff sitting in a dark room saying, hey, what should the city look like? Ha, 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 ha. We'll decide. We'll decide for ourselves. No, it's not like that at all. It's actually born from resident input. Then the council will approve a zoning for a piece of property. Sure, the city staff makes recommendations, but the council is ultimately elected by residents representing residents. They're the ones that decide what goes on property. But once that zoning is set, we don't really have a say in it. The zoning sets out a number of uses that are allowed on a piece of property, and once they're allowed, they're allowed. As long as you meet our regulations, we're going to process your application and get you going. So I would say the development process, and you guys stop me wherever you want. Otherwise, I'm going to keep rambling.
Going.
No, there's a bunch of signs randomly around town with different things. It says proposed zoning change.
Right.
And it's generally on a couple of 4x4s stamped out on the street and lets people know, hey, we're considering changing the zoning for this piece of property. And that's during the public comment period, right?
Right.
And full disclosure, I serve on the Board of Adjustments, which is the appeals board for planning and zoning. So I have some inside baseball on some of this stuff. Some of these are leading questions. I don't mean to be obtuse or anything. The process for if a piece of property is not currently zoned is so-and-so will petition the planning group at the city and ask for permission to change the zoning to be something that they feel is more conducive to what they want to be developed. Case in point, I think there's an active public comment period, or maybe it's closed by the time we record this, the McKinney Islamic Foundation at I forget what the cross street is, but it's right there in the middle of Virginia. They requested a proposed zoning change because the mosque that they want to build doesn't fit the current zoning. I think it has to be smaller than 15,000 square feet of footprint and a certain number of parking spaces. And what they're trying to do is much larger than that. Talk about that process for just a second. If something isn't zoned for what someone wants to do, how do they go about the process of, requesting that something different be approved? And who has to approve it? Is it staff? Is it elected officials? Is it appointed boards and commissions people like Planning and Zoning Commission? Like, talk about that.
Yeah, so you pretty much nailed it. When someone wants to do something on a piece of property that isn't currently allowed by the zoning, they come in with a rezoning request. They submit that to the Planning and Zoning Department. They look at it. They look at it in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Is the comprehensive plan saying that this use, let's say in that case, it's probably a bad example. The Islamic Foundation example is probably a bad example. But let's say in my office example that we were talking about earlier, let's say that the property is currently zoned for single family and I want to do an office. In that case, I would need to submit that application to the planning department. They would review it in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Let's say the comprehensive plan says, yeah, it's supposed to be zoned for or used for residential uses. Well, you've got somebody that is recommending or wanting to do something that is not in keeping with the spirit and intent of the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
So in that case, the planning department would recommend denial of it. From there, from the time they issue their staff report, it would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who is much like staff, they are a recommending body. They make a recommendation. Let's say the Planning and Zoning Commission agrees with staff and they recommend denial of it. So if the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends denial of a rezoning application, it actually requires a supermajority vote from the council, 6 of 7, to actually approve that. If the P&Z recommends approval, it doesn't require that. A simple majority is fine,
Yep.
4 out of the 7. But in a rezoning case, in our example that we're going with here, staff recommends denial. Let's say the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends denial and it gets to the council. There are public hearings at both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council. That white board that you see that says proposed zoning, we're trying to alert residents, hey, if you
Yep.
want to speak on this, if you have a stake in this, or you just want to share your thoughts, come down to a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The case number is actually on those white signs. So when you look at our website or when you call staff and get more information, you'll know what case to talk about. But call us, we'll share information, we'll tell you when the public hearings are. Come down, give your feedback. The council and the Planning and Zoning Commission will take that under advisement, and ultimately the say rests with the City Council. What they say goes. If the P&Z recommends denial of something, 6 out of the 7 have to say yes. 6 out of the 7 council members have to say yes. Or if it's a simple vote, P&Z recommended approval, it's 4 out of the 7 have to say yes.
I'm not aware of, since I've been around in these circles, it's only been about 4 years since I've been even aware that this thing even existed. I don't know if City Council has ever overturned something that both staff and the P&Z Commission both said, we don't think this is a good idea.
Well, I don't have
Is any examples there?
I don't have the data in front of me, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I will tell you that staff, P&Z, and City Council all look at different things. These land use decisions are very complicated. You'll go to a public hearing and you'll have residents talk about noise or traffic or whatever.
Or the height of an apartment building.
The height of an apartment building, and you'll hear some things. I'll just say that.
Very strong opinions.
Strong opinions. Thank
Yes.
you. Well said. But staff takes a more technical, objective approach. We've got these technical documents. We've got our professional expertise. Many of us have been doing this for decades. And we're making recommendations based on that technical expertise, based on the manuals and the policy documents that the council charges us with enforcing. The P&Z is looking at different things. Maybe they're looking at market conditions, or maybe they're looking at direction that the council may have given the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is different than the things we're looking at. And then the City Council is looking at it all. They're taking the recommendation and the input from the Planning and Zoning Commission, taking the recommendation and the input from city staff that we're paid to do this. This is all we do. All day, every day, we do development. And then the council has all the information available to them and they make the decision. So it really is a very inclusive process. The residents get a say in it. Everybody has a bite at the apple.
So when you look at McKinney and the places that are still available for development, primarily, we have great fields and some quasi pastures, I call them. Well, I think there used to be livestock there, but there aren't anymore. And when you consider that there are apartment complexes going up and larger neighborhoods, Painted Tree. I don't know what's north on Lake Forest, but I was headed out that way, and it was all construction. And I was like, man, that's another major subdivision in there. Do you already have the ideal plots of land where you're going to put in like a fire station or things like that? Is that already part of your planning?
Yeah, so great question. I will tell you that the planning for city facilities is done by a number of different departments. It's less the planning and development team, and it's more the fire department as part of their ISO rating. They're constantly planning for and looking where the next fire station is going to be. I know you guys have talked to Mike Kowski, our former parks director.
That's right.
They were constantly looking at where can the next big park go. Our public works facility, our team, they're always looking at, okay, 380 is our middle ground. When we're all grown up, 380 is kind of the north-south. They cut us in half.
The belt line, if you will.
The belt line, absolutely. So on the north side of that belt line, where is our next fleet yard going to go? And so a lot of city departments are doing that. It's not just the planning and development team. We're more focused on actual private development, less on where's the next library going, where's the park going. Those are more those departments are doing that planning, but everybody is looking forward.
So I'm going to use, if you're okay with it, revisiting some of the stuff we talked about at that hearing about the downtown development. If you don't mind indulging me, Fred.
Go.
I feel like it's a great example, like boots on the ground, how things work. And Michael, you can speak in very specific terms as you feel free to. What is happening with that particular development is with the municipal complex that'll be opening in the not too distant future, all of the disparate city offices that are scattered all over the place in the downtown area, most of them. There's like 24 offices that are being consolidated into the new municipal complex. Well, that creates a pretty significant vacancy in certain buildings across downtown, and there's proposed development in what will soon be vacant former city offices, including City Hall, including a couple of different things right there about a block and a half or 2 blocks north of the square. The hearing that I went to is folks hearing from a developer that went through a competitive bidding process where it's a public-private partnership. The City of McKinney put the RFP, request for proposal, out there and said, hey, we want to do something cool with this land. Developers, come here, give us your best ideas. What do you think we should do? And then it went to an initial public comment period to get feedback from stakeholders who lived in the area, who worked in the area, et cetera, and so on and so on. Take the ball and run with it from there. Like when the city recognizes, hey, this is a good opportunity for public-private partnership, and the city goes out and basically puts the word out to the real estate development community and says, hey, this is the parameters of the request that we're putting out there. This is the sort of thing, a multi-use development. I picked a complicated example because I know there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. It's not just a, hey, so-and-so wants to put this business over here at this piece of dirt. There's a lot more that goes into it. So it's an interesting example because I think there's 6 different components of it, 3 different phases of what is going to end up being, I think, 5 or 6 city blocks this development makes up. How does that happen? What's the rationale behind the city recognizing we want to do something cool for the residents? We think that this is a value. It is for the benefit of the good people of McKinney. How does the headspace go from, we should do this, to RFP, public comment, actual groundbreaking and stuff getting built, and people having their say in what should be? Because at the end of the day, staff serves at for the good of McKinney. Council is elected, planning and zoning and board of adjustments, all the boards and commissions people, they're all here for the good of the citizens of McKinney. At the end of the day, it's all about the citizens. It's not about some power tripping bureaucrat somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Unpack that.
It starts with a question. Hey, council, you're going to have this vacant property, these vacant buildings. What do you want to do with it? And it was really the council direction and their kind of foresight to say, let's do something special. Now, this process that we're going through downtown on the north side of the square is not new to McKinney. We actually did it back in 2012 through 2015 with Davis at the Square, I would point out to many of the folks that I've talked to, we learned a lot of lessons on things that worked back in 2015 and some things we wanted to improve on. And so the public engagement that you're seeing as part of this new process is very much because we learned a lot of lessons last time. We didn't include the public enough, early enough. And so what we did was back in January of 23, I posed the question, Council, what do you want to do with these properties? What do you want to do with the buildings? There are a number of options. You could keep the buildings there, lease them out. We become landlords. You could sell them on the open market. Some developer wants to buy the asset and continue to lease them, or you could sell it on the open market. They want to tear everything down and start from scratch. But the option that the council chose, and I did want to clarify one thing that you said, is we actually went through the request for qualifications process. Technical detail between the RFQ and the RFP. RFP requires a lot of upfront skin in the game from the development community. They've got to develop a plan that costs engineering money, time, all the things. With an RFQ, all you have to do is, hey, I do this for a living. These are my qualifications. City, you should partner with me. And the goal that we had when we went RFQ versus RFP was we wanted to cast a wide net. We wanted a lot of people to respond. For perspective, I think when we did the RFQ, well, we started with an RFP in 2012, and I think we got like 3, maybe 4 respondents at the time. We're like, we put the period to that RFP process back in 2012, restarted with an RFQ, and we got 7. So just in a span of a year or two, you can see you're doubling the response rate. This time we got 15 nationwide responses. And I think some of that is McKinney speaks for itself at this point. We're not hidden from a lot of folks anymore. People know it's a great place to be. It's a great market, great quality of life, great schools, parks, all the things that people want to be here. Saying not to overlook, the downtown is phenomenal. You guys have been there, you know it. And so I think it was a unique opportunity and everybody knew it. 15 people responded to us. So we went through an interview process. Before we get to interviews, we have a technical evaluation objective. What we're trying to do is remove bias. I have a connection with developer X. I don't want them to get ahead because I have a connection with them. I've worked with them in the past. So we created objective criteria to bring the cream to the crop or bring the cream to the top, not because I've had some connection or relationship with them, but because they were the best. So what we did was we whittled it down to, I think 4, it's hard to remember at this point, but 4 or 5 applicants or developers that wanted to partner with us, went through an interview process, included some of the council members in that. And so now you're kind of mixing the elected official and then people that do this for a living, the staff, evaluating these teams. Ultimately, the council chose to have public presentations, again, asking the public for their feedback. One thing that I did kind of oversimplify or gloss over, and I apologize if I can go back and talk about it.
Sure.
But early when we agreed to do the RFQ process in early 23, I spent 6 months. There was like a 6-month traveling roadshow where I spoke to boards, commissions. We had downtown stakeholder groups that gave us their feedback. The goal of that feedback was, what should we put in the RFQ document? So when a developer says, hey, I want to develop in McKinney, what should they know about us? What are our expectations? What are we hoping to see? And so we took that feedback from the residents and put it into the RFQ document so that everybody that came to the city knew this is what the residents are looking for. So fast forward back to where we were, we did the interview process, got it down to a top 3, and the council said, hey, let's have those top 3 present to the residents again. So in November of 23, we had the top 3 development respondents present to the public. And ultimately in January, the council chose the development partner that we're working with now, and we're going through the sausage making now. We're refining plans, getting more public involvement. And the thing the meeting that you attended was very much that sausage making. We've got 3 different concepts with our development partner that we'd like your feedback on. What do you like? Which Which aspect do you like? Which aspect do you don't like? Did we miss the mark anywhere? Give us that feedback. Because the one thing that we learned in 2015 was we didn't get enough of that feedback along the way. And we've talked about it numerous times. This isn't me sitting in a dark room saying, I think this should be here. This is very much everything that we do in this city, whether it's this specific project, the hypothetical office example, or the comprehensive plan creation. Everything starts with the residents. Everything.
Yeah, love it.
So now, do you hear a lot of opposing views on more development versus keep McKinney small?
What? Does anyone complain about development, Michael? Certainly not.
I've never heard any negative comments about development in McKinney. This is new to me. You mean people are out there unhappy with development?
I thought everybody was happy with it, Fred.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the dark cabal that I hang with.
I walk such a fine line in this podcast because I never want to make anyone feel, the butt of a joke, or anyone to be made to feel like your opinion doesn't matter. And a lot of these folks that tend to be more on the side of, well, I've lived here for 30 years and I much like this city better when there were 50,000 people here instead of 220. It's so hard as a podcast host, as someone who's very plugged into the way things happen in the city. And frankly, I like development. I like new and better and great things. We talk about an amphitheater coming in, a 20,000 seat state-of-the-art concert and event venue. There's only one or two of them in the entirety of DFW that are like that. I'm sitting here going, woo, yes, that's awesome. We need more of that. But the number of people that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're da-da-da-da-da. Fred and I have to walk a very fine line, and I know that you also have to walk a fine line because everyone's opinion matters.
That's right.
At the end of the day, my word, we got a city to build here, folks. We've got 40% of the dirt in McKinney is still raw. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of land that hasn't been made into something yet. We got people that are moving in left and right, not just from California, folks. Tap the brakes. We got a lot of folks moving in from all over the place, from the Midwest, from the Northeast, from Florida, wherever else. Where are we going to put them? Where are they going to go to school? Where are they going to live? Where are they going to shop? What roads are they going to drive on? Development is a mandate, in my opinion. If you think the McKinney should still be 50,000 people and Custer should be a gravel road like it was 30 years ago, sorry, we're moving forward.
So change is hard. I mean, you guys know this. Change is hard. Everybody knows change is hard. Everybody fell in love with McKinney for a different reason. I moved here when it was 50,000 people. This might be the narrative you're hearing. I fell in love with it when it was 50,000. So the thought of it being over 220,000 people, that's scary. That's not the McKinney I love anymore. But I will tell you, in my experience, I love development. That's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. I think I speak on behalf of a lot of my staff in saying the same thing. Like, they love development. They love helping people. This may be a bit polarizing what I'm about to say,
man.
but I believe that if a city isn't growing, changing, evolving, it's dying.
That's right.
And as a pretty competitive guy, I see city building as a competitive industry. And if we're not growing, we're not evolving, then we're dying. Yep. And if you want to look at what a city looks like when it's dying, think Flint, Michigan with lead in their pipes and all those Rust Belt cities that the suburban flight, those things are horrible for cities. And so if we're not growing, I like to kind of play this out with residents. Like, could you imagine if the city never changed? Remember, back in the early 1800s, 1900s, we put subsurface utilities, water lines, sewer lines. They were wood sewer lines. Now imagine, we got tree roots going into concrete pipes. Yes. We got, iron pipes, wood. Imagine what it would be like to live in a city that still had horse and buggy. Maybe some folks love that, but for me, I don't want to do the same thing that we always did. Yeah. And I love the fact that our council are visionaries. They're looking for what's next. Our staff has been conditioned and hired to build what's next and to think about what's next. And so the thought of just shutting the door after the 50,000th resident got here, shut the door behind them, turn off the spigot. We're not doing it anymore. We're not going to change. We're just going to be that. I don't know. It seems like a really awful place to be, but I will also keep it in context. We want the residents' feedback, even if it's negative. I like to tell people that, listen, if we're complaining about the traffic on roads and that's the only thing we're complaining about, man, we're really blessed.
That's right.
We're really fortunate.
That's right.
Let's keep it in perspective at that point. But yeah, we hear it all. We hear unique by concrete and all the things. I mean, we hear it. We're not numb to it, but.
In that seat, in about an hour and a half, Amy Kincaid is going to be sitting there, Director of Parks and Rec. And she's gotten 2 shout-outs today in
That's
other
right.
episodes. Obviously, one of the best parts about McKinney is our green space. Our parks, our ample green belts. Every subdivision that's been master planned for the last 30 or 40 years is required to have green space and parks and areas for people to get out in nature and enjoy God's creation and all of that. Obviously, there's competing priorities between folks that want to build something that has some sort of support for the tax base, whether in residential or commercial, versus folks that look at a gem like Bonnie Wank and think, man, McKinney needs more parks like this. And as the dad of 2 young kids, oh man, I love a good park. I don't care if it's a playground or just a big grassy field with stuff for kids to engage with. Parks and Rec ecosystem, from your perspective as a developer, as the leader of the development team at McKinney, how do you guys think and philosophize on the importance of balancing green space and natural resources and whatnot with unique by concrete or some business or some vertical thing that wants to get built?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we're in a money-driven business, and so money talks. And so one of the things that we try and do is when we're meeting with a developer that wants to do a master plan community is we talk about the value they're trying to create, both for themselves, selfishly, that's the business, right? But also for the residents that are going to stay there a long time. And we're constantly holding the hand of our developers to say, listen, I know that you're in and out. That's the job. That's the mission. You're in and out. You develop something, you turn it over, and you walk away. But your residents are going to be here living with this. We're going, as a community, going to be living with this for decades, millennia. Don't you want to leave a legacy that looks good, that reflects good on your company? Hey, is there a way that we can partner with our parks department to, Mr. Kowski was able to, as part of the painted tree development, negotiate the sale of 300 acres. Amy will do the same things during her tenure, I'm sure. But it's those partnerships, those relationships that we have with the development community to say, hey, are you open to it? Let's have a conversation. Obviously, the city has regulations, to your earlier point. We can require you to dedicate certain amounts of open space, but we want it to be more collaborative. We want it to be integrated. We want it to be something that adds value to their company as well. And let's be honest, open space add value to everything, to McKinney, to your neighborhood, to your quality of life. It's critical. And so we're constantly having conversations. Hey, Mr. Developer, think about this. I know this is the standard, the requirement. This is the minimum. Could you do more? Could you integrate it in this way or that way? And so it's an ongoing narrative that we have with the development partners that we work with.
So, are you also part of code enforcement?
I oversee code enforcement.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so you talk about the RFQ and then getting the shovels moving and dirt turning. Mm-hmm. There's a project on Custer on the east side near where Storybook Ranch used to be. It looks like a bunch of tiny homes. Mm-hmm. But it looks like it's stalled. Is that something that you're over when projects? Obviously, they come with a timetable. We're gonna do this, and it's broken down further probably by the project itself. Do you also hold the feet to the fire and say, hey, it looks like your feet are dragging or anything like that?
So unfortunately, we don't get to dictate timeframes. What we do get to dictate that the site is safe. That's our primary focus, is making sure that we're building and developing a safe and secure community. And so we don't get to say, hey, it doesn't look like you're making progress. You better hurry up or I'm going to do X. What we say is, if your project goes belly up or if it goes into default or bankruptcy or whatever happens, and it happens. I mean, we've seen it. The Sheraton Hotel sat as concrete pillars out of the ground for like 5-6 years. And so it happens. It's part of the business that we're in. But our focus is just making sure that it's safe and secure, that high grass and weeds are taken down, that it's not an attractive nuisance. We want to make sure that there's fences around it. And so that's sometimes unpopular. Residents will drive by. There was one at the northwest corner of Hardin and University, Highway 380, that sat idle for a while, and the residents were quick to tell us about it. I like to tell folks that I've got 220,000 code enforcement officers. They will tell me anytime.
You got that right.
They will tell me anytime something needs our attention, and we'll get out there and get after it. But
I'm a former HOA board member, and our neighborhood only has 410 homes. I can attest to that fact. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I can't even imagine moving from 410 homes to 220,000 code enforcement officers.
Yeah. They're good. I joke about it, but it is very helpful because we've got 70 square miles. I want to reiterate, 70 square miles in the city of McKinney, and we've got 6 code enforcement officers. And so how do you police 70 square miles with 6 people? You do it with the help of 220,000 people. And so I try and keep it lighthearted, saying I got 220,000 code officers, but without them, we couldn't create the McKinney that everybody knows and loves. We absolutely need their partnership. And you've heard from Paul Grimes, you've heard from other guests on this show. We are very much in the relationship business, the people business. If we don't have those relationships with those 220,000 people, McKinney isn't what it is. Our comprehensive plan doesn't get built. We don't get feedback on development. We have to have those relationships.
Excellent. And so when it comes to things like, obviously, north and east, eventually McKinney will touch our neighboring towns, right?
Eventually?
If
Have you been to the west side?
If the state has their say, probably not. But if it's up to us, absolutely, yeah. We'll build out to touch our sister cities.
Anna, Melissa, watch out. We're coming for you.
I wouldn't put it like that, but
We're coming all the way up to where the lines are drawn. Like right now, it's just naked grass. But 20 years from now, Anna, Melissa, McKinney are going to be right up next to each other.
yeah, it used to be the same conversation. My dad grew up in Richardson and used to say that he would drive up 75 and McKinney was an afterthought. And you look at it now, you can't really tell the difference between McKinney and Richardson it all kind of bleeds together.
That's wonderful.
Or McKinney and Prosper. I mean, I remember driving 380 and someone saying, yeah, you turn here, you go there, and and then I was like, oh, here's Prosper. But now you can see it right off of 380.
This is a total rabbit trail. I look at the maps and I see where the lines of the cities are drawn, and you can tell who's city management, who's planning department, who's development officers were forward thinking and we're proactive and we're looking over the next horizon and even 2 or 3 or 4 horizons from now. And I look at Prosper and I realize what happened probably 20 or 30 years ago, that somebody in Prosper wasn't paying attention, took their foot off the gas, and allowed Frisco and Salina and McKinney to box them all the way in, where Prosper is literally landlocked on all 4 sides. And that's got to be a hard place to be when you realize, oh man, somebody 20, 30, 40 years ago messed up, and Miami Salina is just gobbling up all this unincorporated county land. And
So my question to you would be, did they mess up? Maybe that's what Prosper wanted to be.
maybe, I don't know. If they want to be, I don't know, what are they,
27
square miles. I knew you knew the answer to that
Yes, sir.
question. So 27 square miles, a nice little rectangle, kind of shaped like the island of Puerto Rico, more or less. And
But they have 3 high schools now
they're beautiful high schools.
and
They
a
really
massive
are.
stadium.
Yeah. I don't know. I look at what Salina's done with just gobbling up available land so that they have room to grow. And I mean, everything that I've seen says 50 years from now, Salina is a lot bigger than McKinney. And we tap out somewhere between 350 and 400,000 people, right? So that's a fully developed McKinney is about like that, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah.
So I would submit to you that much like zoning, and I think I said it in the meeting, the downtown redevelopment meeting that you were at, I think I said at the time, like, zoning is a patchwork.
Yeah.
To build a sustainable community, you have to have a patchwork. I think it applies at the regional level too. You have to have a McKinney, you have to have a Princeton, you have to have a Prosper, you have to have a Salina. It takes all of it to make Dallas-Fort Worth this place that people want to be. It's part of the miracle. If every place were like McKinney or every place were like Salina, how boring would that be? You have to have a Prosper. And that's why I asked the question. Maybe it wasn't that they didn't have foresight. Maybe it was that's what they wanted for their community. Yeah. And again, it goes to that you have to have a patchwork to keep it interesting and to keep it, my word, viable.
Yeah, I love the pushback there because I'm a business owner. I'm a growth guy. I'm a free market capitalist, and keep your foot on the gas pedal for as long as you can until at some point you're running out of gas. And there you go. Like, I love the counterpoint there because you're absolutely right. It's entirely possible that maybe they wanted to be exactly 27 square miles and top out their population, somewhere around whatever it is, 100, 120,000 people, something like that. Yeah, I love it. Good pushback. Well done. Fred, anything you want to finish? I've dominated the questions today. I'm sorry.
That's perfect.
Development's my baby. I love this stuff.
No, I just want to reiterate for the people who listen that we're not against car washes and nail salons and all those things, because those do pop up everywhere, and that the people who came and said, I want to develop this strip mall, or I want to plant my business here. Those people looked, and they had a choice across 50 states, right?
Yep.
And they said, I want to be in McKinney. And they chose McKinney for a purpose. And so we celebrate that because they had a choice to make and they chose McKinney. And that is what we want. We want people coming here who will build up our community. And for everyone who complains about, I don't want to see that here, I don't want to see that there are just as many people, probably more, who actually love going to that place because it's convenient.
You said something so profound, and I think it goes to that narrative that we started with, is everybody thinks we sit in some dark room and say that should be a nail salon or that should be a tire shop. We don't. And it's exactly what you described. Somebody has done their research and said, hey, there's a gap in the market and I think I can fill it here. Or I want to be in McKinney. What market can I fill? Let's fill that. And so it very much is capitalism. If you don't want car washes everywhere, stop going to car washes, and it won't send a signal to the market saying, hey, this place loves car washes, let's do another one. And so that's the thing that we hear a lot is, do we need a car wash on every corner? Do we need another donut shop or a nail salon? The answer is we don't decide that. You guys do. The public does through your spending habits and through the demographics of the community. That's the research that these developers and business owners are doing. They're looking at who has discretionary income, how many people are going to the car washes now, is there room in this market for another? That's the calculus they're doing.
Man, all I got to say, if there's a dark room out there with people trying to plan more tacos, I'm all for dark rooms and the taco cabal. Come on, man. Right. I am totally fine with lots of delicious taco shops.
Take me with you. I want to be there,
bro.
too.
Okay, all right. So let's just jump right into the lightning round here, since you brought it up. Okay, so this is just a series of questions. Yes, no wrong answer. Just your choice. So we're gonna start off the top. Tacos or brisket?
Ooh. Oh man. I'm gonna say tacos. Brisket, I've had some good brisket and I've had some bad brisket. I love brisket, but man, I've had some dry, bad brisket before. So tacos seems easier.
All righty. So James, you want to ask your related question to that from the last time we asked?
Oh, you want to hit him with another haymaker?
Yeah, hit him with the haymaker. Come on.
Okay. Local Yokel or Rick's Chop House?
Oh man. Oh, I can't. I know them both. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I can.
Because
Yeah.
you can't go wrong with either.
They're both phenomenal.
They really are.
That's right. Okay.
Phenomenal.
All right.
Today, right now, which one's your answer?
I'm probably going local yokel, but I do have a lot of business lunches at Rick's.
That is my favorite business lunch place.
Yes.
It's just nice. It's old school, classic elegance.
Yep.
The tin foil bar back there with the piano, like that is probably the coolest room in McKinney.
Yeah.
Like
It's a great space.
I don't have any more gotcha questions.
Okay.
That's
All
it.
right. So we'll
Thank
go
you.
back to the simpler ones. Taylor Swift or Journey?
All right. So my daughter is a massive T-Swizzle fan, so you know I got to vote for T-Swizzle. I did listen to Paul's episode, and so anybody going with Journey, I don't know. T-Swizzle for me. Shout out to the daughter.
So he's a Swiftie. All right.
Yep.
So we know who's got him wrapped around the pinky there.
Dude, he doesn't have any daughters. He doesn't
I don't
understand.
have daughters. So I don't
He has
understand.
two
That's
sons.
Right. That's right.
As fellow girl dads, we understand.
Yes, sir.
We absolutely do. Okay, final question, and we're bringing this music back again. We need different music. We need final question music.
That's right.
Imagine, if you will, a swimming pool of infinite size and only 6 feet deep. There's no edges to the pool. Who would win in a fight between a great white shark and a giant 12-foot tall polar bear?
I have to admit I cheated.
You knew this question was coming
I did.
because you heard Paul's episode.
I did. I
Yeah.
cheated. Okay, so
you
here's what
thought
I'll
about
say.
it.
That's not cheating. That's called being a good
That's
listener.
right. That's research.
Research, absolutely. So here's what I'm going to say. I felt like, based on the podcast that I listened to, sharks were not getting enough love. I don't know who would win in that fight, but I will tell you, sharks have their dedicated week. Jaws, Meg 2. They
Shark
have
Week.
their own
Yes.
movies, their own. I don't know any 12-foot polar bear movies or a week dedicated to polar bears. So
Yeah,
I'm
but
gonna say-
Cocaine Bear came out last year,
yeah,
right?
but it was a black bear, right? Come on.
Yeah. He's got a point. I've never seen Polar Bear Week on Discovery Channel.
That's right.
I'm saying. So I'm gonna go shark.
Shark.
I can't argue with it. It's
Okay.
totally valid logic. That's why it's a fun question, because there is no wrong answer.
That's right.
Awesome. Hey, man, I really appreciate this. This is our longest running episode, and it 52 minutes of runtime without the bumpers, and man, that was on fire. That is exactly what I was hoping for. There's no way someone can listen to this episode and come away and not feeling better about understanding the way that their city operates.
Yeah.
Who do you want people to be reaching out to if a listener has a question about such and such? Is it obviously their first round is reach out to your city council person. There's 2 at-large members. There's the mayor, and then there's 4 district members. You have both a district representative and an at-large representative. If you are is it Charlie and Michael? Is Charlie at large, or is he?
Michael is at large.
Charlie's at large.
And then Michael Jones is at large.
Michael and
So
the mayor.
Rick is 4, right? Rick
Yep.
is District 4?
Yep.
Okay, so Patrick Cloutier in District 3, if you're down there in the Craig Ranch southwestern area. If you're in the middle of city, it's probably Dr. Jere Feltus, who is now Mayor Pro Tem. Shout out to her. And of course, George and Michael and Charlie serve as your at-large representatives. So first and foremost, reach out to your representatives on city council. Other than that, Michael, where do you want them going?
Our website has a lot of information. So if you go to www.mckinneytexas.org/development, there's a bunch of data there. There's information on zoning cases, all there. We also have a contact list where you can get access to anybody in development services, including myself. You can get our phone numbers, our emails. So I would send folks to our website, www.mckinneytexas.org/development.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes, everybody. So if you weren't listening and writing things down, you can just go to the show notes and click that link. And man, what a great episode. Michael Quint, thank you so much for your time, dude. This has been great. And on behalf of Fred and myself, this has been another episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature. Make it a great day, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk to you again real soon. Y'all take care.